Hi, this is Alexandra Deanda. This is my creative revision project for MWA2. I revised my project to be a video essay, and that is what you're watching right now. So, I first want to start by going over what institutional support services is and what they hope to provide to us. I will first show a clip of the interview I did with Alicia Solano, who is a director for institutional support services. The basics, I guess.
Mhm.
I know, like on the phone, you already talked about like what the institutional support services are, but would you mind going over that again for me?
Sure. So, institutional support services, that's what the name of our department is. We oversee um, the auxiliaries, so auxiliary departments on campus, as well as the facilities and the real estate. So, we have currently 15 different entities that report up through our office. So, and you can find the whole list of them on our website. But from the bookstore and parking to student housing, food services, Pope Joy Hall, ticketing.
So, institutional support services is one of the resources here on our campus. It takes care of many of the non academic things, as stated by Alicia. Um, some of the resources that ISS provides help keep our campus functioning. Resources like student housing, parking and transportation, food, and the bookstore are all services that they provide that aren't necessarily academic services, but they do provide, you know, great resources for students on campus. The resources ISS provides help our campus feel like its own little functioning town. The department that I, the departments that ISS manage cultivate a great sense of pride and school spirit for those attending the University of New Mexico. I know that a lot of the resources that institutional support services provide are actually services that really make the campus feel like home and like it's a part of me and that I'm happy to be attending here. I have a lot of admiration for the people that work there. I'm gonna go ahead and share a few more clips from the interview with Alicia so you can get a better understanding of what institutional support services is and what they are trying to accomplish here. I also wanted to ask like if there's a goal behind ISS, if there's a certain like vision that they have in mind, of course. But I also want to ask if like your personal goals like align with that and like your personal goals for your life and like within your career, obviously.
So our overall mission statement is that we want to be able to provide seamless services to all of our customers. So whether that's students, staff, faculty, patrons, um, visitors to campus, is to provide those seamless services. So by seamless, I mean, hey, if they're planning to hold an event on campus, do we have um, uh, parking available to them? Do we have catering that we can offer them? If it's going to be something for graduation, we work really hand in hand with the university secretary's office between the bookstore, because our bookstore, they're the ones that pretty much get all the graduation regalia. And so they coordinate with the university secretary's office. So in the end, is to provide the seamless services to those customer groups, but also to be able to do it in the most technologically advanced way. And then also to be able to provide exceptional service to those folks. So, and how that aligns necessarily with my own personal goals. I, I grew up in customer service. I used to manage a Cold Stone Creamery in my undergrad years. And so for me, it was always about creating that. For us, our vision was always to create the ultimate ice cream experience, because you have to set yourself apart. And so for me, it's always been within my own goals, it's always to be able to provide whatever that service is.
The services ISS provides for us have a lot of purpose behind them. Although these services don't provide academic support, these services are vital for good learning experiences. Without proper parking and transportation and the ability to have a clean campus, students just wouldn't be as productive. ISS contributes to creating an environment that makes everyone on campus happy and ready to learn. Near the end of my interview with Alicia, she recommended an article done by the members of Institutional Support Services staff. This article is called Successful Students Need Support from Beginning to End of Their College Experience by Rachel Stone. This article covers a lot of details about the things that Institutional Support Services does that contribute to the overall academic growth of students on campus. A quote from Rachel Stone says, "It takes more than just great professors and dedicated learners to graduate thousands of students from college every year. Students need classrooms and appropriate facilities, a place to park their vehicle, housing, food, textbook, study spaces, entertainment, and even electricity and water." I couldn't agree more with what she's saying within the article. She just goes on to explain how important it is that these services are provided to students. Institutional Support Services doesn't just provide essential services to everyone on campus, but many of the things they do also help cultivate a sense of community amongst the students and staff. The nice learning environments and ability to socialize are things we cannot take for granted, especially during this pandemic. As someone who has spent most of their semester at home in my bedroom, I'm truly missing the socialization that school provides. Institutional Support Services is the organization that gives us the atmosphere where we can make friends and build connections on our campus. For example, sitting outside under a tree outside on campus wouldn't exist without Institutional Support Services, as they cover a lot of the custodial staff and the staff that keeps our actual facilities pretty and looking nice. One of the departments that Institutional Support Services manages is the broadcast of New Mexico PBS across our state. The public television station is licensed in part by the University of New Mexico. I think it's really cool that something like New Mexico PBS is broadcasted directly from our campus. We have a state filled with diversity, and a huge amount of our culture relates to art created by people in New Mexico. This is why a lot of the documentaries presented by New Mexico PBS have to do with artists specifically in New Mexico. For my review purposes, I decided to watch an episode of Colores in order to get a better understanding of what exactly New Mexico PBS was providing to people, and to see if they were doing a successful job of that. I thought that accessibility to New Mexico PBS is a huge part of deciding whether or not this service is actually effective. If this content truly isn't accessible to a larger public, it would make their goal of providing educational content to our diverse citizens very hard. The website itself was very easy to access and provided a large amount of resources for me to look through. However, not everyone has access to the internet. The PBS team on the University of New Mexico campus is what makes the station actually accessible to a larger public. The channels are public access channels and allow for anyone with access to a television and antenna to watch educational content. They also have a PBS app which provides streaming services for anyone with a smartphone. This makes their content accessible on almost every platform, and it therefore should be available to almost everyone within New Mexico. I would also like to examine the content of the educational content New Mexico PBS provides and decide whether or not it's an effective educational tool. I watched an episode of Colores titled Nina Elder, and it aired on October 3rd, 2020. The episode goes over an artist based here in New Mexico named Nina Elder. The interview was conducted over Zoom, showing how these different shows are having to adapt even within the new pandemic. The interviewer asks Nina Elder about her art and the meaning behind her art. She talks about how her art is created to represent a lot of devastation of humanity with climate change. She wants to make her art about the cycles of life and nature. This was definitely a wonderful and educational interview. It gave me, someone who actively enjoys art within New Mexico, the ability to learn about more artists I might not have otherwise heard about. The second half of the episode focuses on a photography exposition that also has the intent of showing some of the effects of climate change. The exhibition shows two nature photographs, and they're both dramatically different, but the intent behind the pairings is very real. All of the content in the episode provides information not only about our local artist and her message, but also about the scientific and educational side of the meaning behind some of these art pieces, specifically about climate change and the devastation of that. New Mexico PBS does a wonderful job of providing interesting and educational content to anyone in New Mexico that's wanting to look for it. The shows that air on PBS can cover a variety of topics, but you'll almost always learn something new. New Mexico PBS is a great resource for students to use to research some information that may only be available locally. It's also an overall great resource for educating the public and giving them the opportunity to learn more about art and culture within our beautiful state. I also wanted to discuss my personal relationship with New Mexico PBS and how it has changed throughout the years. I grew up watching New Mexico PBS, whether it was the cartoons that came on after school or if it was just on in the background. The television channel really helped give me some basic education before I was even actively involved in school yet. It gave me a television channel that was not only educational but also entertaining. Some of the television shows I remember from my childhood are shows like Rough Ruffman and Arthur. These shows are really, really important to me, and they were a huge part of my childhood. There's a lot of people that I know in my personal life that don't understand certain references to things like SpongeBob or other television shows that were mostly on cable television rather than public access television channels. Because of this, I think that the public access television channels are nationally and maybe internationally much more universal, and people can really relate to them because almost all of us grew up with these television channels, whether or not we had cable or whether or not our parents were able to afford that. Overall, New Mexico PBS is just one of the many resources that ISS manages. It provides content not only to people on campus, but also people outside of the campus as well. So it may not just, New Mexico PBS may not be seen as just a University of New Mexico thing, but considering that it is broadcasted here from our campus, I think it was a really interesting thing to review as a campus resource rather than as a television channel. So, in conclusion, the goal of institutional support services is to provide seamless services to everyone on campus. All the departments that ISS manages help make our campus run just a little bit smoother. I'm sure that during this pandemic it's become even harder for them to take care of all the resources that they do manage. For example, I know that during freshman orientation, trying to get Lobo cards out was quite an ordeal, as, students weren't able to come to campus to actually take their photos and get their IDs printed. So they had to work around that and become more adaptable. This shows just how important these services are to our campus and just how important the staff members that are keeping our campus running are. Trying to keep a whole campus running seamlessly during a world pandemic can be really, really hard, and they're doing a great job. I don't doubt that ISS has had a few rough bumps during the journey that 2020 has brought us on. With every year of college, there will always be a few rough patches along the way, but overall, ISS has done an amazing job of keeping our campus under control even during this pandemic, and I'm sure that they're going through an extreme amount of effort to make sure that the university is running really smoothly for students and staff members alike.